Hi QA folks, today I want to show you how you can automate test for paging using Playwright. Actually with Playwright it's quite simple comparing to Cypress, for example. So I'm talking about elements like this. Here is a table with data. You can click on page numbers and see new data being fetched or shown on the page. The idea of the test will be to go and click through each and every page and check that total amount of entries, in this case amount of blanks, on all pages. I will collect them and store them in the array is exactly as it's shown here in the counter on the top, that there are 568 blanks on 48 pages. All the code will be in this repo. I'll put a link in the description. So let's take a look at the code. So here's the simple variant of this case, of this test. Assuming you already have Playwright installed, you know a little bit how to use it. I showed it how to do it in previous videos. So first of all, we'll need locator to collect bank names. So let's check this one. Here it is, table row TD1. We will go through it. You'll see it's first column, all the cells in first column. By the way, default value for page size in the table is 12. I'm not going to test switching to different page sizes. It's not the goal of this test. So yeah, we'll be testing on 12. So we have locator for bank names. We store it in our code. With the next step, we open in the web page, declaring array where we will store all the bank names. Hard code for now, table page size 12. In case you will need to switch it to different values and to test that that switcher or drop down works, you can use this variable for that. Next, I have a function that returns number of results in the counter on the top. What it does, actually, it takes this whole text and extracts from it this value. I'm not going to test that this I calculated properly. Again, it's not the purpose of the test. I can do that, but that's not the goal. So I'm opening the page, I'm getting results on the top. What do we have inside this function? So I extracted in the separate function for the sake of better visibility and the code readability. So I have locator for that element. Here it is. You see. Now I have another helper function that get text from element, and I store it in separate file called web element utils. I created it by myself manually, so I created utils folder and created web element utils.js and put this function inside it and added export statement, so I would be able to import it in in other files. So what this function does, it accepts page, it's Playwright page from here. I'm passing to each and every method. And the locator of web element, initial result empty string. If element present, then I'm taking a text content from it. If not, I'm returning an empty value. why I added this if statement, because I didn't want this test of this function to throw exception right away in case there is no such element. I wanted just to return empty value. So that's why this if statement is here. That's what this function does. So we have locator, I'm getting text from that element, and this statement just basically splits this text using spaces and takes the second value from the end. It will be 5, 6, 8. I am adding plus right before it to convert it to number, otherwise it will be a string. So that's what this method do. Now, after that, I'm calculating expected total number of pages. So I need to divide this value by the page size 12. So in our case it will be 48 pages, and I'm going to round it to the ceiling of the value. So it will be, if it will be 47 dot something, the end result will be 48. Now the next step, I'm not doing any pagination yet. I'm just gathering all the bank names from the first page. So banks on page 1 equals get text from elements. And what this function does, it's also, I put it in the web element utils. It actually gets array of elements that correspond to bank names, locators that we are passing into it, and then it takes text content and push them into array, declared array, and return this array. So that's what this function does. And then I am adding all the banks from page 1 to initially empty all banks array. Now what about pagination itself? So I'm going to click the way I implemented it. I'm going to click on all the page numbers one by one, increasing incrementing it by one each time. So actually this loop will end when there are no more pages to click on. So basically when it will be trying to switch to click on page 49, it will go out from this while loop. So what does this function does? Click on page number. This is my XPath locator for paging buttons. For example, let's take the 5th one. You see, so this is for this one, and so on. Now, again, if there is no such page or button with such page number, I don't want it to throw exception. That's why I have added condition that if there are no such elements, do not fail, just return false. So basically, if I clicked, I am returning true from this function. If I didn't click, there are no pages. There is no page. There's a page to click on. I'm printing out console message and returning false. So if there is corresponding page number, I'm just clicking on it. Again, I'm using just for maintainability, click on element, separate function is just a wrapper run page locator first click. So again, if page with such number exists, it will click on it and return true. If it doesn't exist, it will not click, will not throw exception, will not fail, but instead it will return false, and that's it. So that's why I'm using a while loop instead of putting it in standard for loop. So while there are all the pages, click on each of them and collect bank names. The same as I did previously for the first page. Push them to all banks array and increase page counter number. So basically with this, in this I will collect all the banks on all the pages, and after that I'm just doing some verification assertions using expect method. So what I want to verify, first of all, that the amount of pages in the table equals total entries on the top divided by table page size. So 568 divided by 12. I'm using next page counter variable. So since it was increased after the last attempt to click, I need to decrease it, to decrement it. So I'm checking that it corresponds to, so it checks that I indeed clicked through all of 48 pages. Next, I want to verify that all the bank names that I've collected is exactly the same number that is shown above the table, mean 568. That's the main purpose of the test, right? So this table contains all the banks, the exact number that is shown here. And as an additional check or verification point, I'm just in case verifying that there are no banks with empty names, because there might be a theoretical situation when paging will work. It will go through all of the pages, but some or all of the names will be empty. So I want to catch this and verify that there are no empty bank names. So basically that's the simple variant. Again, I just used couple helper functions just to extract the code and to be able to reuse it later if I needed to. Or you can put them, by the way, I'm not using for the purpose of this example page object pattern, so you can put these methods or functions inside page object classes or files. So what else can be verified for the paging? This is the extended version. I just didn't want it to be more, I didn't want it to be hard to read. That's why I come up with a simple variant first. But actually there is extended version when I also verifying that there are no duplicate entries for the banks, and actually on this particular page there might be duplicates on this particular website. For example, there might be, like here, Valley Bank in Fort Lauderdale and online different states. So if you need to check that all the values should be unique and there are no duplicates, you can do that as well. For this purpose I'm using set instead of array, so set cannot contain duplicates, and I'm adding all the banks from each page to this set, and then you can check that size of this set equals total entries. That's how you can check for duplicates, but again, this site allows duplicates, this table, so that's why it's commented out. Also, here as another example of writing the same code, I used a for loop. So you might write the same logic using different code constructs. Here I'm also added additional check that each page except the last one should contain exactly 12 entries according to this selected value. Initial value is 12, right? That there is also additional check here that there is no page buttons more than 48. So I'm trying to click on 49 here, for example. I'm getting false since there is no such paging button, and I'm checking that it to be equal false. It's the same check for empty bank names. And here for this loop I used some additional logic that in order not to collect banks from the first page that opened initially outside the loop, I added some additional logic that will gather it inside the loop itself. So that's why it's saying expect all pages plus 1. So basically that's it. That's how you can automate tests for your paging. What else can you check? I do not check first and last, but they also should be tested if you're testing everything from scratch. You can also test that this value is increasing. This remains, yeah, this one is 2 because it's page dependent. This one I'm checking that it remains the same during pagination. It's the same as first, the same button. So let me show you how it runs being executed. Let's start with this one, simple version. So you see it quickly goes through each and every page. Here is the log of test run. Click on all the pages. By the way, you can add some delay here if your web application, your website is switching between pages slowly, but in this particular case it works totally fine without any delays, but you can add it in here on comment. And the second one, basically it looks the same visually, but it also prints out duplicates. But again, it's passed because it's not an error. For this website, it allowed to contain duplicate for different states and cities. So that's it. See you in the next video.